The world's wealthiest military lost to the Taliban. America fled Afghanistan, leaving Afghans with no choice but to embrace the Taliban, recognize it as a nationalist politico-military group. Washington insists that the Taliban have changed. US peace envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says the Taliban have even acknowledged their past mistakes with regards to women. Basically, the US wants the world to believe that we are not dealing with the Taliban, but Taliban 2.0. Is there any truth to this? Have the Taliban really evolved, or are they still wearing the robes of medieval dogmatic ideologies? Hello and welcome to Afghanistan Dialogues. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and today we'll discuss what is Taliban 2.0. Have they really changed, or is it just a facade? Why do these terrorists-turned-rulers need a PR offensive, and why is the world buying this marketing campaign of 2.0? To discuss this, I'm being joined by Nabiullah Baz. He's a former member of the Afghan Parliament. He's joining us from Kabul this evening. Lynn O'Donnell joining us from London. She's the former Kabul bureau chief of the Associated Press. Greg Barton, professor of global Islamic politics at the Alfred Deakin Institute, and he's joining us from Melbourne. And Marvin G. Wienbaum, he is joining us from Washington, D.C. He's the director of Afghanistan and Pakistan Studies at the Middle East Institute. Lynn O'Donnell, gentlemen, welcome to WION.
Well, thank you.
Lynn, let me start with you. Is Taliban 2.0 another American lie? Did they really just rebrand the Taliban to use it as an excuse to leave Afghanistan?
I think that is probably collaborators in the world. I've certainly been involved with the former US President Donald Trump in an attempt at rebranding the Taliban, but it's an aberration. I think that not only are they the same as they ever were, they're probably worse, because what we're seeing now is a revengeful, retributive Taliban. They're taking revenge on people they perceive as having been their enemies. They're going door to door. They're disappearing people. They're killing people who have been advocates of rights, democracy, women's freedoms. And so there is no 2.0. But there certainly is a very nasty face of a terrorist Taliban.
You're not mincing words. Marvin Wienbaum, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad repeatedly told Afghan television channels that the Taliban have changed, that they're sorry for their past mistakes. Do you buy that, or would you say that this 2.0 version is nothing but a whitewashed terror group?
Well, it's so little that I accept on face value from what Khalilzad has to say. I don't know why I would accept this. He's been misleading, I think, the United States policymakers for some time now. And so, again, I would be very skeptical of anything that he says. No, I don't believe that they've changed, except in style. They certainly have learned the techniques of strategic communications. They know exactly what others want to hear, and they'll feed them that. But until proven otherwise, I think we have to conclude that the Taliban's basic mission, as they see it, has not changed. And that while it welcomes any kind of assistance and certainly recognition, that's not going to deter it from taking the course that it is determined to follow. And all of our negotiations with them to this point have demonstrated that they expect us to make the concessions and that they'll make none of their own.
The adjective 2.0 usually refers to something that is more advanced than the original. Nabiullah Baz, would you say that the Taliban have advanced in their views on women's rights and minority rights over the last 20 years? Is a quote-unquote evolved terror group acceptable as rulers of a country?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. Coming to your question, it's too early to say anything. As you know, that we still don't have a government. But so far, the things that I have seen since I'm already in Kabul, they did change. I would say that, because the thing is that the way that they took over the country was in itself a miracle. Nobody would believe that. And this just begs a question. What happened? What happened to our army? What happened to the government, how easily it fell to the Taliban. So there has to be something behind it, right? And I personally believe that it's the people. They had the people's support. this time around, if we were to look at Kabul or the whole Afghanistan, they are going to door, but not to find or to take revenge on the people who fought against them, but to actually just and familiarize themselves with the geography, with the Kabul city itself. They came to our house a couple of times. They asked who I was, and we told them that I was a member of the parliament. And then they were like, okay, so the government issued guns. You have to return it back. I refused to do that. And they just left. They were like, I told them that once you guys formulate your own government and then you can come, you can take it. But not right now, since we're still in a state of uncertainty and chaos. So it kind of tells me that... Sorry?
They listened to you?
Yes, they did.
You can't take the guns yet?
They left. Yes, they did. Yes, I told them that you cannot take the guns yet. You have to come through proper channels so that at least when I'm handing over government's property, it should go to the government. Right now, we're not going to do that. There were some other cases as well, since I'm already in contact with my other parliament members. Some of their houses, some of their cars were taken. But when we asked the government officials, the Taliban officials, that now they're in charge in different police stations and ministries and all that, they clearly denied it. They said that it's not our people. Because right now, we do have to understand, since there is no government, so there are a lot of other people, a lot of other imminent threats in Afghanistan that people would disguise as Talib, but they're nothing more than thieves. So as of right now, it's too early to say anything, but so far the people of Afghanistan, they still have a hope of being, because they're not that aggressive as we thought they would be.
How much more aggressive do you want? I'm not sure how much they've taken by proper government channels, as you put it, and I can see other panelists shaking their heads. I'll come to them. To me, Taliban 2.0, frankly, looks like just the old Taliban, and I'll tell you why I say so. In 1996, Taliban leader Mullah Omar asked the residents of Kabul to not leave the country, and today his successors are saying the very same thing. Women are still being shot. They're still being sold as sex slaves. Journalists are being killed, taken off air. A poet was killed. A comic was killed. All of this is happening. What has changed, as some others rightly pointed out, is their PR push and social media campaigns. Greg Barton, why should the world believe that today's Taliban is different?
I think the question is less should the world believe that today's Taliban is different, rather than the question being what do we do with the fact that the Taliban have militarily won this conquest? They've taken over Afghanistan. How do we react to them now? I don't think we should trust them. We shouldn't take them on face value. But for the sake of the people of Afghanistan, we have to try and engage with them with wisdom and discernment to make the best of a very bad situation. That's not taking them on face value, but I do think we have no choice but to engage with them with caution.
Well, that's a different, like you said, that's a different question. Should we engage with them? As you said, the world has no choice. But do we buy this whole line of Taliban 2.0 and them being different is a different thing altogether? The Taliban are desperate to rebrand themselves. They are uploading videos of checking in on Hazara minorities, of girls going to school. And that's perhaps because they know that violence against the Hazaras will never win them the support of Iran, say, or violence against women will be a diplomatic disaster. They're also promising not to support Uyghur Muslims because they need China. Lynn O'Donnell, does everything about the Taliban's rebranding come down to recognition then? Is that what they want?
Certainly a way of... the expectations, I would say, are for a diplomatic recognition of whatever sort of government or administration that they put together. But I think one of the things that we often forget is that the Taliban are the biggest drugs dealing, producing, and in large part processing gangs of drugs dealers in the world. They make billions of dollars out of heroin. They've branched out into methamphetamine. They have also long been in control of the illicit mining that has robbed Afghanistan of huge amounts of money that the state could have made from its own minerals and mining sector. Nobody seems to be wanting to, at government level, wanting to recognise this or confront this as the reality. Taliban 2.0, maybe it's the 2-point part of it is that they are wealthier. They are almost self-sustainable. Certainly their revenues are similar to those sans aid that the last government was able to generate. They have, as Greg said, become the victors in a long and nasty military conquest against the Western alliance, and they do have to be dealt with. The question then becomes, how do we deal with a criminal cartel that has militarily taken over a strategically important country with the backing of Pakistan, as we know, and I would imagine that they have had, because of the way the military strategy unrolled, and I was there to report on it the last 3 months, a lot of strategic advice and involvement from Pakistan. They've got China. They've said, we're not going to complain about you murdering your Uyghur Muslims to Beijing in return for the red carpet treatment that we saw rolled out for them in Beijing on August the 8th. They've got Russia and they have Iran. So it very much has to be dealt with. It's on what terms do we deal with a criminal cartel that has become the new North Korean little brother of the world's dictatorships. It's a reality. It has to be dealt with. The question then is how, and are we even capable of it?
And since you said that you reported from there for the past 3 months, I want to ask you, Lynn, do you believe that the people of Afghanistan, at least in your interactions with them, do they buy this whole line of the evolution of the Taliban?
Well, not in my experience. I very much understand that Nawid is in Kabul and that he is a member of parliament and that he is probably under surveillance and he has to be careful. And as a politician, he's probably also naturally cautious. I respect and appreciate that. But I did move across a large part of the country as a reporter in the last 3 months, and nowhere that I went did I find people who were anything but terrified at the prospect of having the Taliban take over their districts. And in some districts that I went into, the Taliban had taken over and been pushed out, and the legacy they left behind was one of sheer terror, having told people, for instance, that they wanted lists of girls and women because they were going to be married off, as you said, as sex slaves, as jihadist war booty to their fighters. And these sort of things are a reality, and nowhere did I see support for a Taliban takeover. Or as a balance, I would also say that nowhere did I find support for the government of the former president, Ashraf Ghani, either. People described it to me as bad or worse. And the bad was Ashraf Ghani's government and the worse was the Taliban.
That's a very interesting take. And like we said, Marvin Weinbaum, that the Americans probably wanted a pretext to get out, and so they started this rebranding exercise. But there are other countries that must be elated with the way the Taliban is being presented and legitimized. Pakistan's ambassador to the EU, Zahir Aslam Janjua, recently said, and I'm quoting here, the Taliban have declared amnesty and they're urging women and others to go back to work, which I think is one of the big concerns of the international community. Then we have the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, saying the propaganda against the Taliban has been proven false. Do you believe that this whole campaign of 2.0 also helps Pakistan, among others?
Oh, Pakistan is going to be rather critical because what the country is facing here is a humanitarian crisis. We can expect that the economy is going to implode. Yes, the Taliban are self-supporting, but the country is by no means self-supporting. And so the big question for Pakistan and others is, to what extent are they going to come in and provide what the country is going to need just to keep going? At this point in time, it's a real dilemma because the United States particularly is in a position, is in a position to provide them because of frozen assets. I forget the exact number of billions of dollars, but enough to keep them going for quite a while in terms of their economic requirements. So I just don't think that diplomatic relations as such is the issue. The issue is going to be to what extent are they willing to help the Taliban and thereby undergird their behavior, and to what extent will they be able to, if they come in with humanitarian assistance and cannot freely monitor, vet what's happening, will this go into the pockets of Taliban officials, just as it did with the government, with the republic's officials? So the real crisis here, I think, is going to come in the coming weeks when they have to cope with what is going to be the fact that as I say, the economy will implode, and then we'll see that the refugee crisis that we're only beginning to see now really mushrooms to a very great extent.
Right. And Greg Barton, is Taliban 2.0 also the beginning of perhaps Jihad 2.0? Because countries in Asia, at least, are bracing for what is coming. Bangladesh is on high alert. I have a long list. Indonesia is scanning social media for Taliban sympathizers. Southeast Asia is afraid that Taliban's gains in Afghanistan may embolden terror groups in the region. Is this a valid concern?
I think it's certainly a valid concern. I think with respect to Afghanistan, for too long we've relied on wishful thinking to the point of delusion and cover-up, which has not been good to anyone, least of all to the people of Afghanistan. President Biden followed President Trump in wanting to get out. He said he didn't want to carry on with this forever war. The trouble is we don't get to end long wars like this by just walking away from them. They don't stop when we walk away. I think the victory of the Taliban sends a tremendous message to Salafi jihadist groups around the world, even if they're at odds with the Taliban. Even, Islamic State, for example, will still get benefit from this. I think there is the inevitable prospect, and it's a question of time and extent, but I think it's inevitable, there will be people flooding to at least parts of Afghanistan for terror camps, for training. And I think to the extent that the Taliban are forced to live up to their 2.0 image, their facelift, and become semi-respectable, that actually makes it very hard for many states, including particularly Muslim majority states in Asia, because if they're dealing openly with this new government, then they risk their nationals going in what might appear to be humanitarian service, but puts them at risk of being radicalized. So it's a great dilemma. But I think basically in terms of this so-called long war, from the Salafi jihadi perspective, this long struggle to prevail, I think it's going to see an escalation, maybe not immediately, but I think we're less than halfway through this long war, and this will be an inflection point. Things will, I think, get worse from here, unfortunately.
Nabil Abbas, you're the only one on the panel who believes that the Taliban have indeed changed. If they have, what should the world expect from them, and what do Afghans expect from them?
First of all, I do not personally believe that the Taliban has completely changed. Like I said, it's too early. It's too soon to say anything. But I'm also saying that we shouldn't rush to judge. Let's give them some time. Let's see what they have, what kind of plans they have for the future. And one thing, let's be very clear on this. I'm here in Afghanistan, in the Kabul city right now. I'm seeing everything with my own eyes. If I'm saying that let's give them a chance, there must be something behind it. It's not that because of that I'm under surveillance. No, that's not it. First of all, I just want to say that my age is 28 years old. So when there was the Taliban's government, I don't remember anything. I was probably around 9 or 8 years old. Things have changed. It's been 20 years now. In this 20 years, we have seen that the Afghans were dying left and right on daily basis. We would give 500 of Afghans every single day they would die. At least now we don't have that. This is something that we are grateful that for the past 40 years, this has been a couple of days now that we haven't heard of reports that people dying in a war. So this is something that the people are looking forward to it. But at the same time, yes, we are very sad. Like I said, it's been 20 years, and I grew up in a government where it was republic, it was democratic, and now out of a sudden the whole system changed. So obviously the people are coping with it. They are trying to get familiarized with themselves with the Islamic rules and everything. And that's not something to worry about, because the things, like I said, Afghanistan, 99% of our people are Muslims. So if there's a proper Sharia law, and I'm emphasizing on this proper Sharia law, we wouldn't have any problem with that. So when it comes to Taliban right now, I want to see the young generation of Afghanistan wants to see it with their own eyes and see that what's going on. We don't want war. It's been too long now. It's been way too long.
I understand what you're saying, and there are too many ifs here. If there is proper Sharia law or the Taliban's version of Sharia, like you said, it's too early to tell, but here's something that I've been thinking about. Phrases like that, we'll have to wait and watch, and only time will tell, and Lynn would agree, have been overused and worn out by news reporters the world over, and I often tell my team to avoid them. But in this case, I think there's no better way to end. We will have to make an exception and have to see whether the Taliban really have changed. Is this 2.0 a bluff? Or will this be a new beginning for the Afghans, a better beginning? Like I said, we will wait and see. Nabiul Abbas, Marvin, Lynn, Greg Barton, thank you very much for taking out time and joining us and being part of this conversation. Thank you for being with us on Afghanistan Dialogues. Stay safe.